Good morning and welcome to Breakfast Central. Very delighted that you've chosen to start your morning with us. For the next 2 hours, we're going to be exploring political conversations around the country. It's been really heated in the past 24 hours, from Nnamdi Kanu to the updates with Siminalayi Fubara in Rivers State. But not to worry, we have you covered. I am Olive Emodi.
Welcome to Breakfast Central, your one-stop destination for the latest news and insightful discussions here on News Central Television. Sit back, relax, and start your day with the best breakfast team in the country. I am Benga Aborowa.
Absolutely, and we do have a lot of stories to bring to you here on a Tuesday morning. It feels really, really hot in Lagos. I wonder what the weather condition simply is where you are watching us from. Particularly, guys, I'm wondering if the weather would be so hot in other states, possibly in up north, or you could say north central. But in Lagos, it's really hot. A lot of persons woke up with a bed soaked in sweat. But the good thing is we're refreshed, ready to go on a Tuesday morning. Let's start off with our wake-up conversations. Our very first story this morning highlights what Nigerians have woken up to. It started off first in the FCT. It's got to do with third-party insurance. The question is, do you have a third-party insurance when you're driving, while driving? The reason is because the police, IGP says that it is very key, the IGP Egbetoku says it's very key that you do have a third-party insurance for certain reasons. Well, let's take a look at the video as we start off our wake-up conversations this morning and see what he had to say about it.
The third-party insurance is the minimum level of insurance cover that is required by law. Make it mandatory for all vehicle owners to have a minimum of the third-party insurance before they put their vehicles on the road. It's a requirement for roadworthiness of vehicles on Nigerian road. The enforcement of this law has been part of our daily enforcement activities in Nigeria as police. The Nigeria Insurance Association reported that less than 30% of vehicles on Nigerian roads are insured. That's a challenge. The violation of this section of the law is an offense that is punishable by law with imprisonment or with fine or with both. I want to encourage all Nigerians to take this seriously, to ensure that they go and get at least third-party insurance cover for their vehicles before they put those vehicles on the road. Full enforcement will commence, like I said, from 1st of February 2025.
Well, you did hear the association concerning insurance and all that said only 30% of Nigerians have third-party insurance. Benga, does it come as a surprise to you?
I mean, I'm very surprised because it seems some cars are exempt from all sorts of laws and rules when it comes to traffic, the downfalls and the kekes. You need to see the way they skip red lights. So I can bet my last kobo that this guy's don't have any third party, any form of insurance. So it's a good thing that they're enforcing this, but I'm not too sure if it's the place of the Nigerian Police Force to do this. You have the vehicle inspection officers, you have the Federal Road Safety Corps, the police already has a lot in their hands. They should be looking at tackling banditry, armed robbery, criminality. What's your business with third-party insurance?
And I'm really glad that Benga has mentioned that, because that was also the same standpoint that I had. I was thinking, aren't we overburdening the police? Doesn't the police have other more pressing matters to deal with? Nigeria is currently battling insecurity, right? We have rising, due to the rising cost of living, people are trying to make ends meet, and sometimes using that as an excuse to explore criminality and illegality. Shouldn't the police be focused on doing that? We're complaining about the fact that the number of VIPs still have police officers being attached to them as opposed to what should be. So again, it's a bit confusing when it comes to conversations about who should be able to enforce certain policies on the road. They will tell you today that it's FRSC, tomorrow it's VIO. Like, we need clear boundaries as to which law enforcement agency handles which area. Not that tomorrow now see army stopping me on the road and asking me for driver's license.
Or neighborhood watch, if you're not careful.
I agree, but this is where my concern comes in, guys. My concern is, just like you saw in the video, the police seem to be more interested in private cars. So, are they going to stop downfall drivers, the one we know as Korokwe? Are they going to stop keke napep, or better still, keke marijuana?
So road users too.
And the downfall drivers. In some cases, you do have these large, like we call them, coaster buses. Are they going to stop them? It's what we as journalists and as Nigerians should actually be interested in.
Because all laws should apply to every road user.
It should apply to all.
And Joe, I think one of the reasons why they don't like to stop those downfall drivers is because of their temperament. I mean, these guys are desperate. We've seen scenes where they got naked, went under the bed. We saw a video recently where one of them poured petrol and lit it up.
Yes.
And the last guys had to run away. So but no one is above the law. I mean,
just so
what
we're
is
clear,
good for the goose is good for the gander.
Just so we're clear, we're not in any way against insurance. We think it's important that every vehicle on the road has insurance, as it ensures that where there be unforeseen circumstances, like people that are angry because they don't like their jobs and on the way they hit you, you're sure that your car will be fixed, right? But it's also important to mention that there are other factors that mitigate against the ability for us to have a wide number of cars being insured. Again, now, a number of people, I know you would say that the rising cost of living doesn't affect, maybe for someone to own a car, they probably are not as hard hit. But the truth is, these people who own cars, 2 years ago used to buy 12,000 naira petrol to fuel their cars. And right now they're spending 60, 70,000 naira. People are trying to grapple with the current realities. But
go get your third-party insurance. It's not that expensive. And guys, I also want to ask you if you've insured your voices, because that's what we use for our job.
Yeah.
It's a thing, you know.
Voice insurance. Yeah, I mean, being if you have the cost.
Our MD will ensure that that's part of our package, yeah.
Now,
all right.
Moving on swiftly to our third story. This is a sad one. University College Hospital in Ibadan. Students have been on strike for quite some time. Protests. They've been protesting the bad state of sanitation, no water and no electricity in UCH for about 100 days. And it's very, very terrible and a sad situation. If you recall the glory days of University College Hospital in Ibadan, it was a first-class hospital. People used to come from all around the world to get treatment here, and it's very terrible to see it in this state. Yesterday, I spoke with the union official, a student union official. He works at the UCH, as a resident doctor. We spoke on the condition of anonymity, and he said, the university authorities told them not to speak to members of the press. And he also mentioned that the Minister of Power, Mr. Adelabu, was at the premises of the UCH yesterday, held a meeting with the Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, IBDC, and they resolved to restore power within the next 24 to 48 hours.
So did we have to wait until it got to over 100 days?
Do you know what a hospital is?
No, it's ridiculous. And this is not to say in any way that we support this, but when the members of the Nigerian Labour Congress went to protest and shut down the national grid, everybody was shouting, oh, there are people connected to oxygen, people connected to life support, that at the end of the day, they were the ones that suffered as a result of this sabotage. Is this not sabotage? Is this not sabotage of the lives of Nigerians? People, again, are going to be in the ICU. There are people who are connected, who are, fixed on life support. They need this power. How have they been able to survive? It's just.
And I think hospitals should actually have a sort of independent grid. Critical infrastructure should be connected to their own grid and away from NEPA because of the life-saving work they do there.
Absolutely. Right. Well, let's get to hear what the Minister of Power had to say.
That will separate the clinical services from the rest, so that going forward, UCH will identify its own power consumption. Another transformer will determine the power consumption for the College of Medicine and its hostels that will be transferred to the University of Ibadan for discharge. All these bodies were placed on UCH before. But we're going to establish that the businesses in these premises are also not paying for electricity. It's on the leg of UCH. It should not be so. Should we be paying power consumption for that?
Well, we must say, well done to the Minister of Power, by the way, Bengan Olive, because he swung swiftly into action.
After 100 days.
Well, let's just give him
At all,
yes,
exactly.
At least he showed up and he made promises, and these are promises that we will believe it's going to stick. Not just that, I think another angle we should all pay attention to is what I personally have also clamored for, guys. I've said, instead of putting estates, houses, and so on in band A, B, C, my suggestion to the Minister of Power, if you're listening this morning, is medical facilities, not forgetting to manufacturing companies, should all be placed on band A permanently. There's no need to say, because of that, if you do that, what it means is, it's like if you go to the United States of America in particular, there's some places in New York, in Houston, where there's constant, they're all lined up. They have constant supply of everything they need from the government, be it being linked to oxygen, be it being linked to power and the likes. I think we should do the same as well.
Well, that's banned,
these guys
in fact,
band A permanently.
Categorizing people in band A, band B is another subject of controversy, because there are people who say that these are the rights of Nigerians. Are you saying that people are only entitled to power based on what they can afford in terms of their finances and the likes? I mean, it's another issue that...
To use Gen Z parlance, the band A is not banding anymore.
It's not banding.
It's not giving what is meant to give.
It's not giving.
All right, now to our final story. Former governor of Ekiti State, Kayode Fayemi, has said at his 60th birthday celebration that the fights you see and the squabble you see by politicians on social media is just purely for entertainment, and that it's not really that deep. He said, and I quote, "All these things you read on social media are for your entertainment. Many will wonder why Governor Segun is here. During his birthday, I spent the entire day with him, and Governor Ayodele Fayose too would have been here without hesitation if he was around." He said, irrespective of political differences, Ekiti politicians are not enemies. And I dare say that it's beyond Ekiti politicians, and I hope that the Nigerian
Can you extend it to River State, Olive?
I don't think it happens. It's the same in River State. I don't think so.
It's not. But I think the underlying message, right, whilst there are politicians that will fight dirty and fight to the finish, is to realize that when it comes to politics, they're not permanent enemies, just permanent interests, really, that are being pursued.
Right, absolutely.
Right? So that I hope that the Nigerian voters can remember that when they go to the polls. Politicians are like lawyers. We can be on the opposing side of arguments in court. At the end of the day, we can meet at the bar and grab a beer together without speaking about our case.
That's why you were called to bar.
Hey!
Meet at the bar and you are called to.
Hey! I see what you did there.
Punchline on Tuesday morning.
But it's the truth. Like, these people fight dirty on social media when they see each other in real life. Baba.
They attend each other's children's weddings.
Exactly.
And all
fly
that,
abroad for each other's celebrations.
I mean, guys,
but pitch us, the common people, against each other.
Olive, do you remember what we just saw in the United States of America, which many have said happens to be the grand political state? You did have Donald Trump sit with who?
With
Barack Obama. And
yes.
they all were gisting and saying and laughing and so on. So I agree with him. Politics, no permanent friend, no permanent
enemies, just permanent interests.
And I hope their foot soldiers remember this during electioneering,
That's
because
the
they take it
problem.
very personal.
That's the problem. The foot soldiers do not remember this. The average Nigerians who go to the polls every day don't remember this. And what happens is they're fighting each other based on tribe, religion, political affiliation, whereas the people that are the leaders of these different political parties or these different states, they are actually friends in real life. There's an Igbo adage that says, meaning that quarrel between brother and sister doesn't get to the bone. It's the same thing with politicians. I hope that Nigerians can remember that.
Wisdom.
I wonder how Benga will say that in Yoruba.
Nah, it's fine. Tomorrow I'll give my own problem.
Wow, let's not even try.
Top stories. Top stories up next. Top stories. Don't ask me. Don't ask me anything. Top stories up next. Let's take a look.
This morning on Breakfast Central, we'll be bringing the updates with Nnamdi Kanu's trial as Justice Binta Nyako has adjourned indefinitely. The Supreme Court rejects Fubara's appeal against Rivers Assembly, and the drama continues. Still speaking about Rivers State, Martins Amaewhule-led Assembly remains sacked, according to Femi Falana. NAFDAC raids Aba Market, seals of violating shops. And we'll be reviewing the newspaper front pages with our guests and also opening the phone line so you can contribute. All these and more on Breakfast Central, but now let's bring you breakfast headlines.
Welcome. This is Breakfast Headlines. We start with politics. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has kept his lips sealed after a closed-door meeting with former President Olusegun Obasanjo in Abeokuta on Monday, dismissing heavy political insinuations that had been read, into his visit. Atiku arrived at Obasanjo's residence located on the premises of the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library early Monday afternoon, accompanied by two former governors, Aminu Tambuwal and Leo Imoke of Sokoto and Cross River State. Several other prominent politicians were also in attendance. Upon arrival, Atiku and members of his entourage were received at Obasanjo's residence by elder statesman Oyewole Fashawe, before they all went straight into a private meeting with Obasanjo, who had been waiting for his visitors. The factional speaker of the Rivers State House of Assembly, Martins Amaewhule, on Monday reacted to the dismissal of Governor Fubara's appeal at the Supreme Court. Speaking during a press briefing at his Port Harcourt residence, Amaewhule said his faith in the judiciary has always been unwavering, and he believes their decision will ultimately resolve the political crisis in the state. He also accused Governor Fubara of unauthorized spending of River State's funds without appropriation. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines. Breakfast Central continues shortly.
Welcome back to Breakfast Central. The Federal High Court in Abuja on Monday indefinitely adjourned the terrorism trial of Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the banned indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, after he challenged the presiding judge's impartiality. Justice Binta Nyako halted proceedings following Kanu's protest, marking the second time in under 5 months the separatist activist has rejected her oversight of the case.
Here's what you should know. Nnamdi Kanu was arrested in Kenya in June 2021 and extradited to Nigeria. He has been in the custody of the State Security Service since 2021 and is standing trial before the judge on charges of terrorism and treasonable felony arising from his separatist activities. IPOB, a banned separatist group led by Nnamdi Kanu, seeks an independent Biafra state in Nigeria's southeast and parts of the south-south. And also, in September 2024, Kanu sought Justice Nyako's removal from his trial, claiming bias. She temporarily recused herself. Chief Judge of the High Court, John Soho, reversed the recusal, ordering Kanu to file a formal motion case reassigned to Nyako. However, during yesterday's proceedings, Kanu disrupted the process, roaring at Nyako for refusing to step down and criticizing judicial fairness. Now, joining us this morning to further discuss this is Liberos Oshoma, legal practitioner. Well, welcome to you, Liberos, and thanks for joining us on Breakfast Central this morning.
Yeah, good morning, and my pleasure always.
Now, let's start with this. Nnamdi Kanu questioned the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court in this case. Under Nigerian law, what are the key factors that determine whether a court has a proper jurisdiction to try a defendant, particularly in a case related to alleged terrorism and secession?
Yeah, we know, thank you once again, it is principles of elementary law, long established in the case of Obeya Memorial, that the federal government, the Federal High Court is empowered to try, matters bordering that has to do with, federal government agencies, especially, matters that had to do with offenses that are national, in outlook, for example, offenses of treasonable felony, offenses of terrorism, and all of that. And, matters against federal government and federal government agencies. So, jurisdiction wears different toga. For example, if you discuss about issues of jurisdiction, service or processes, lack of service or processes can rob a court of jurisdiction on the ground that one of the twin pillars of natural justice have been violated, which means, audiotare patem, which is you must hear the other side. Yvonne would understand what I'm talking about, being a lawyer.
We have a lawyer in the studio.
Yes,
Olive is a lawyer.
Yvonne will understand that. So, violating one of the twin pillars of natural justice, hearing the other side, and then so many other issues. If, for example, the matters brought before the court is one that the court lacks the power to look into. For example, if it's a state matter and you bring it before the Federal High Court, the defendant can, complain that court lacks jurisdiction. But in this case, Kanu is not complaining about the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court. He's complaining, I think from what I heard, what I gathered, is complaining about the specific judge. And this is not the first complaint. If you also remember, I think about one or two other lawyers had recused themselves from Kanu's case. Zekome was part of that team, and I also know that he withdrew from that case on activities such as this, where the defendant would want to take over his case by himself and not wanting his lawyers to speak for and on his behalf. And then also, I would want to call on the federal government to expedite action on the matter. The matter had dragged on for too long. It's almost as if the government is not, ready. But the attitude of the defendant also, can be a clog in the wheel of the case. A situation where the defendant keeps, objecting to judges, try him. That can also delay the matter. But all in all, I would my admonition would be to both parties, to allow the matter go on. If at the end of the day the man is found innocent, he should be allowed to go. And then if he's found wanting, then he should face the music.
I mean, there's been a lot of
anyway.
There's been a lot of criticism as to the manner in which Nnamdi Kanu's case has been handled. And this criticism has been leveled not just against the government, but also the court. He's made very strong allegations against Justice Binta Nyako, which had led her to initially recuse herself. I would like us to speak about the authority the judge, first of all, after having recused herself, to be forced to continue with the matter. But let's take a look at this video. Nnamdi Kanu was speaking at the court, and then when we come back, I'll ask you the next question.
Corruption charges. They sent her to my case so they can release or smoothen the pathway for the husband and the son. They are facing, it doesn't matter if they're off it. In a corrupt society, that's what happens. They are very, very corrupt. That is a breach of judicial oath. They have violated their judicial oath. They have shown bias according to Supreme Court. They are biased against me. Supreme Court said so. And that is why what is happening in the judgments and rulings concerning me has been happening. So, disobedience to superior court orders. Supreme Court said you are biased. You are against this man. You should not have revoked his bail. Nigeria went to Kenya and kidnapped him. These things are in the public domain. Why, therefore, are they insisting on trying me? A court order was entered. In that very court order, it was said very clearly and succinctly that she is no more. That she is no more going to try me. Why?
Right, that is a video of the IPOB leader Nnamdi Kanu speaking at the court. Mr. Libero Shoma, he's made very strong allegations as to the character and maybe competence in this matter of Justice Binta Nyako. He's alleged that the government, of course, is forcing this case upon her because they, in a way, have leverage. Of course, he didn't mention details, but we know that her husband, Murtala Nyako, and the son, Abdulaziz, had been tried by the EFCC for a case of fraud. Now, these allegations, as strong as they are, on who rests the burden to maybe conduct investigation as to whether there be conflict of interest in this case, and what should be the right steps? Does he have a right to raise this argument? And should maybe the body of benchers, or what body should be looking into the allegations that he's leveled against Justice Binta Nyako?
Yeah, first and foremost, in as far as the matter is concerned, these are two distinct and different matters. The allegations levied against her son and the husband are two different matters, and the appropriate agencies are looking into the matter, and if they are culpable, certainly they will go in for it. That does not rob Justice Binta, if you can hear me, it also does not rob Justice Binta Nyako of the powers to try the matter. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Please.
Yeah, so it also does not rob Justice Binta Nyako of the power to try the matter. So basically, these are two different matters. And then when issue of bias is raised, most especially, in most cases, what the judges do, they send the file back to the admin judge or the chief judge, and then you make a formal application, and the chief judge will review your grounds. And then if truly there are any likelihood of bias, then the chief judge can assign a file back to another judge for trial de novo. But in this case, I do not see the allegations that a judge's husband or son is facing trial for corruption as a ground for being biased against a matter that is brought before another person by the federal government. If at all, even if that's the case, any judge could have done the bidding of the federal government. If that's the case, not necessarily Justice Binta Nyako. So, but as the case as it is, the judge had sent the file back to has adjourned the matter de novo, what do you call it now? A sine indefinitely, and that also does not help the case of the defendant Nnamdi Kanu in this instance. Also, he raised allegation of a Supreme Court judgment or ruling. I would have expected that this would form the grounds for his final address in the matter, ordinarily, or file a preliminary objection, at the first instance. So all of this can be argued, and eventually this matter gets to Supreme Court, and the court will look at it holistically and rule on it. Otherwise, all of these interviews on TV and the rest will not form the records of the court. So the best thing to do would be file application, state all of these issues in your application, or let it form the basis for your final address after examination in chief, cross-examination, and re-examination. And then it will form the record of the court that will, also enable the Supreme Court, the final court, to look at it, since he has also raised the question of a subsisting Supreme Court judgment.
Now, Mr. Oshome, Nnamdi Kanu did talk about bias. He alleged bias. He also said a number of judges don't want to touch his case. That if that's the case, he should be moved to the southeast. What process? Is this something that is legally permissible? And what do you make of this? What's your thoughts on his suggestion that his case should be moved to the southeast?
The defendant, first and foremost, the Federal High Court, by period of authority, has been held to be just one court. And so the jurisdiction of the Federal High Court is, national. So, and Abuja being a central place, considering security implication also, the federal government, in its wisdom, decided to try the matter in Abuja. And so, I think also his attitude is what is discouraging a lot of judges from even touching the case. Even if the matter is moved to the southeast, what's the guarantee that considering the volatile nature and the insecurity in the southeast, that judges with this kind of attitude will not, threaten judges to submission? No, it's not in the place of a defendant to elect and choose, which courts, without any, substantial reason. Like I said, the reason certainly would, be contained in a formal application, and the chief judge will look at them, and if the reasons are not weighty enough, the judge can always say, look, these are no reason, because it is not every allegation of bias against a judge without merit, without meat, that the court will look into. The judge can say, well, you've levied allegation against me. I'm even not even ready. I have so many other matters to handle. So I'll take the file back to the admin judge. But the admin judge can look at it and say, no, you continue handling the matter because there is no meat in these allegations. And I also do not think with this kind of attitude that the federal government will be ready to take the matter to the Southeast, for trial, considering also the allegations that is being levied against him. But and lastly, like I said, I would advise him and his lawyer to this attitude will not encourage, serious-minded lawyers, permit me to use that word, will not encourage some of his lawyers, rather, will not encourage some of his lawyers to continue in the matter if he wants to do the prosecution or the defense by himself. Rather, he has employed lawyers to represent him. Let them represent him properly and then adequately. And most of these issues, put them, in the records of the court, because all of these ones now will not be in the record of the court. And it is that attitude that people are saying. Imagine telling a lawyer, shut up, don't talk when I'm talking. Some of these things, people will see them and will feel that, it's been, dramatic and will also not help his case.
All right. I mean, there are those who would argue that a part of the reaction will be based off the way and manner in which his matter has been handled over the years. Speaking as well about, his the way in which he initially was granted bail and the matter was sort of revoked and he had been held in detention for the longest time. We've seen a public outcry by Nigerians saying that he's been treated unfairly and unjustly. And whilst I know that the court is not a Father Christmas and it only grants, the prayers that have been brought before it based on the facts that are before it, is there sort of any weight to the emotions that have been expressed by a number of Nigerians? Because that's part of what we're discussing today, when we get to what Nigerians are saying later. If you see the reactions on X, majority of the reactions we have seen have been people advocating that he be given the same leniency that the quote-unquote terrorists have been given, and his matter be treated with that same care in which we've seen in the case of terrorists being forgiven and the likes. Is there sort of any merit to these standpoints?
Yeah, it is for me, they say let justice be done if even the heavens will fall, because the heavens will fall. But in doing justice, justice is not a one-way traffic, it's a two-way traffic. Justice to the defendant and justice to the prosecution. The way government had gone about the matter, really, I would not, sit down here and say, yes, there's been, justice to him. The way government has handled the matter also had given credence to the fact that, government is unnecessarily sentimental biased about prosecuting him. They are truly not ready to prosecute him. It is almost as if, they are persecuting him. And it reminds me of the case of Al-Mustafa that dragged on for years and eventually, he was released. And so that is why I think that all of this certainly would come to an end someday. I may be a political solution to the problem, because in a country where, like you have rightly pointed out, in a country where, people who are charged with terrorism are rehabilitated. I know people would want to say, okay, no, now he's a leader of a group. But it's his right, like you said, it's his right to agitate. And if federal government feels threatened or they feel that, there are issues that borders on terrorism or treasonable felony, it is proper for them to table them, appropriately, and not in this hide and seek manner. Today you bring this charge, tomorrow you amend, he's granted bail, you revoke the bail, the court asks DSS to release him, and they still hold him in custody. It truly also means that the federal government is either not even interested in whatever the court will say, they are using the court to hold him. Which is why I think that since the Supreme Court had, made a pronouncement that they are biased against him, that's the best thing to do is to, if I were in his shoes, I would, because you have 3 levels here, I would forget about whatever will happen at the court of first instance and pursue my case diligently there, ensure that all the records and all the processes and arguments are in the records of the court, and then subsequently appeal, knowing fully well that someday a final court will give a verdict, and they have given one before. And so all you just need to do is to ask the court, when the matter gets to that court, to revisit the issue. This issue of back and forth, at the end of the day, the judge now also had adjourned sine die. So for that period, he will remain in custody. Nothing is end, nothing is gain. The federal government has not been fair, and also he's not helping his matter.
Now, considering Kanu was arrested in a very commando-like fashion in Kenya, reminiscent of the Umaru Dikko saga in the 1980s, does international law, including international principles of extradition and human rights law, have any bearing on the legitimacy of this case? Can Kanu's legal team leverage on international legal instruments to challenge this trial based on the way he was extradited from Kenya?
That's a diplomatic matter between the Kenyan government and the Nigerian government. I do not think that he would be, permit me to use the word, bundled out of Kenya without the connivance, active connivance and collaboration of the Kenyan government and immigration authority. So Nigeria is not superpower to that extent that they will just muzzle out the Kenyan government, and just go uproot a citizen in Kenya. So that would be a diplomatic issue between them. I do not think that it is a ground that the lawyers can leverage on, because the offenses for which he's being tried were allegedly committed on the soil of Nigeria. And it is immaterial the way he is brought into Nigeria. It is the Kenyan authority that can complain that a citizen or
regardless of how he found himself in Nigeria, it doesn't matter by any means necessary, as long as they brought him to Nigeria.
Regardless of how he finds himself in Nigeria, the fact remains that if the offense is committed and is being tried here, it is the government of that country that can challenge, the way he's removed from their country, internationally. And not, he won't see, I don't think it would be a defense to him, available to him, to complain that, the way I was brought here robs the court of jurisdiction. The question still remains, are these offenses, are these acts, offenses in Nigeria? So that's the issue that I think the federal government should face. And really, like I said, the federal government, should show, what do you call it now, diligence in prosecuting this matter. They have not shown diligence. They have been dilly-dally. They have been back and forth. File application today, withdraw it tomorrow, amend charges today from treasonable felony to terrorism, and all of that. It's almost as if, you know what, let's use the courts to hold him down. So that's the area his defense should actually explore, and not the way and manner he was brought into Nigeria. If the Umaru Dikko's case that you refer to, if they had succeeded in bringing Umaru Dikko from London to Nigeria, it would have been a different kettle of fish altogether. They would have tried him here.
All right, let's talk about, what legal concerns we might have as a result of how Nnamdi Kanu's case has been handled. Yes, you've said that Nnamdi Kanu has particularly not helped his case with the manner in which he's gone about it with his lawyers, but you've also agreed that the federal government hasn't been utterly fair. They haven't acted fairly towards Nnamdi Kanu, especially as many would argue that the federal government has acted in a capacity that overrides the judgment of the court. Are there any worries and concerns as to what this might mean for other cases and what precedents this might be setting in Nigeria's legal landscape?
Yeah, it's set a very bad precedent. Also, it puts a big question mark in our ability to successfully, independently and unbiased prosecute cases of this nature in an unbiased manner. That's the big question. And whatever outcome, whatever verdict the courts of first instance reach tomorrow, people are going to look at it from the prism of bias and persecution. So that's why I think the federal government, ought to have just pursued this matter straight, and done with, instead of this drama. The drama is really unnecessary. He was granted bail once, and then subsequently the army invaded his house. and frustrated the bail. And so that, was a ground for even escaping. Eventually, when they arrested him, brought him to court, I remember even those that took him on bail, they were excused because the bail was frustrated by the army invading his house. So all of this attitude will lay credence to the fact that the federal government has not been fair in handling the matter. So I will encourage them, especially the Chief Justice of Nigeria, to ensure that they look into the matter at the level of the NJC and give further directive to the prosecutor. If the prosecution is not ready, then the court can strike out the matter. When they are ready, they can always refile. And then for Nnamdi Kanu, I also think he should allow his lawyer do more of the work and ensure that at the end of the day the records are straight, because all of this, like I said, someday will come to an end.
Now let's look at the current situation, the latest, the legal implications of an indefinite adjournment. Justice Nyako adjourned the case indefinitely, despite the prosecution's readiness to proceed. What does an indefinite adjournment mean in legal terms, and what are the potential implications for both prosecution and defense? When are they going to come back together? Does it mean Nnamdi Kanu is going to remain in detention indefinitely? Who needs to step up and bring all parties together so they can expedite this case?
That's why I said Nnamdi Kanu also is not helping his case. A man wants to keep you in custody in perpetuity. You are fanning the embers of that request by all of those asking the court. So what the court has simply done is there's a request, verbal request from the defendant for the court to recuse herself from the matter. And so now the court simply decided to so do. And with this adjournment sine die, you don't even know when the matter will come up. Maybe the judge might just minute the file again back to the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court. And while all of this is taking place, the young man will remain in custody. And, so...
but this could be interpreted as a delay tactic on the federal government's side.
No, it wasn't a request from the federal government. This was a request from the defendant himself. He does not want the judge. What do you want a judge to do when there is a formal request, whether formally or informally, and he says, look, I will not submit myself to your jurisdiction? Should the court insist on going ahead with the matter?
But I think the argument for Nnamdi Kanu in this case is the fact that Justice Binta Nyako at the last session had recused herself.
So why is she coming back?
So now we're seeing that the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court...
It is not in Justice Binta Nyako's, what do you call it now? It's not in her place to say she will not try a matter. Matters are assigned by the admin judge or the Chief Judge. So if she recuse herself and she sends the file back to the Federal High Court, to the Chief Judge, and the Chief Judge looks at, because a formal application was requested by the Chief Judge from Nnamdi Kanu and his team. And that formal application, after the Chief Judge probably would have looked at it, and he found out that there is no merit in that application, he will send the file back to the judge to continue from where they stop. So it is not in Justice Binta Nyako's place to say, I will try it or I will not try. There is an admin judge that assigns matter. So if the file is reassigned to her, certainly she will continue with the matter. If the allegation that he raised, that the court feels that there are no merit in it. So it wasn't she who willingly or voluntarily, by practice of court, to say, I want to continue the matter. The matter was reassigned to her. That's probably why, she's taking up the matter again.
All right.
Thank you very much, Barrister Liboros Oshoma. I'll let your legal colleague take over.
I just wanted, a final question. And the final question would be that in the interest of peace, the government has argued, or there have been arguments that Nnamdi Kanu's, the reason why they did override the judgment of the court at the time was that releasing him might, aid or incite the insecurity in the southeastern part of Nigeria. Well, he's been held down. Sorry?
It is not in their place to do that.
Yes.
If the court has made a pronouncement, you obey the pronouncement of the court. You don't go back and say that there are supervening circumstances. You first and foremost obey the judgment of the court.
Then,
and then
or you challenge
cannot
that.
bring superior facts.
Yes.
You can bring superior fact before, the court, or you challenge that decision. But to on your own sit down and say you will not obey because of, certain perception, for me, it is, it's not justice.
And thank you for pointing that out. So now that we are unfortunately where we are in the Nnamdi Kanu case, or with the Nnamdi Kanu case, I know that when it comes to law, a number of times they will try our best to explore alternative means of dispute resolution, so long as it doesn't have to lead to a dirty fight. Are there ways that the government can incorporate some sort of dispute resolution to hear not just the cry and the plea of Nnamdi Kanu, but also the supporters who are demanding his release? Bear in mind that he's been held in detention and it hasn't reduced the spate of insecurity in the southeastern part of Nigeria. So in maybe 30 seconds, are there other measures quickly, that the government...
I will tell you that the agitations of Nnamdi Kanu is as a result of the imbalance, inequality, and injustice in the land. And so once you address the imbalance, you address the inequality, you address, the hunger, unemployment, created by government ostentatious lifestyle and insensitivity on the part of government, agitations will naturally die down. So that is why I think government should not just be looking at the stick. They should also look at, take the blame in some cases, look at what they have done to fan these embers, and by so doing, also listen to the plea and find a common ground to resolving all of these issues. Government should take the bigger blame.
Right. Liberal Shoma, thank you so much for your time with us this morning. Do have a wonderful rest of the day.
My pleasure always.
All right. Let's now move on to Rivers State, where the Supreme Court has struck out Governor Siminalayi Fubara's appeal, challenging the leadership and legitimacy of the 27-member Martins Amaewhule-led Rivers State House of Assembly. Now, this comes after the governor's decision to withdraw his appeal. Recall that there has been a leadership dispute within the Rivers State Assembly where Martins Amaewhule's faction is recognized by the court and Governor Fubara has sought to contest it. As part of the court's decision, the governor has been ordered to pay a financial penalty of 2 million naira to the Rivers State House of Assembly and Martins Amaewhule, who was also named as a beneficiary of the payment.
Front page review on Breakfast Central. It's time to find out what big stories are making headlines today. And joining us this morning is the publisher of the niche newspaper, Ikechukwu Amaewhule. One welcome to you, Ikechukwu. Always a pleasure having you join us on Breakfast Central.
Wenga, the pleasure is mine. Olive, how are you today?
I'm well, trudging along. But we thank God. Let's look at the papers this morning and see what the front pages are saying. Let's begin with the leadership newspaper. On the front page of Leadership, alleged terrorism, Nnamdi Kanu questions court's jurisdiction. 27 lawmakers pro-Wike Fubara camps differ over Supreme Court verdict. INEC sacked REC, prove your innocence in court. PDP, pressure mounts on Damagum to swear in Ude Okoye as party scribe. Court registrar demoted over illegal transactions. JAMB registers 420,674 candidates for UTME. Why I visited Obasanjo in Abeokuta, article says, and final, two more stories. Nasarawa poised for greater success according to the AG. In the final one, analysts project 15% inflation as MPC holds February 18th. That's all on the leadership.
Now let's take a look at the Daily Independent newspaper. The headline says Tinubu's $1 trillion economy target by 2030 still on course. The federal government assures. The writer says inaugurates presidential committee to drive economic inclusion. There's also CBN awaits rebased GDP shift February MPC by 1 day. 3.2 billion naira infraction. Reps ask EFCC, ICPC to probe ex-Labour Ministry permanent secretaries. And JAM cracks down on exam fraud, sanctions 6 CBT centers. You think when things go technology, when they apply IT, it reduces incidents of fraud and all of that. But interesting to see that one there. Federal government reviews private varsities application fee to 25 million naira. I still think that is quite small, to say the least. And Lekki Epe Airport to be completed in 2 years, says the Lagos State government. Olive, You don't have to come all the way down to Ikeja when you're going abroad. So that's some good news for you.
That'd be wonderful.
As aviation stakeholders tax fan to up its game. There's also a headline there on the Daily Independent. CJN laments persistent corruption allegations and bias against judiciary. Interesting development. Rivers crisis. Fubara didn't lose case at Supreme Court. Opposition reps.
All right, let's move to the Punch newspaper. On the front page of the Punch, we see the big story. 2027, Obasanjo, Atiku, others meeting no threat, says APC. Ruling party unfazed as Labour Party and NPP divided over possible Atiku-Obasanjo collaboration ahead of next election. We still have on the front page why Rivers withdrew Supreme Court appeal against pro-Wike lawmakers by Fubara, and of course that's because it's been overtaken by events. Uber driver killed, body dumped on Lagos Road. My goodness.
A sad one.
This is really sad. Edo Tribunal, Okpawolo closes defense as lone witness admits overvoting. We are still on this matter. And we have at the top of the paper, hospitals groan over deaths as federal government, 50% power subsidy delays. 800 surrendered Boko Haram's militants undergoing de-radicalization according to Defense Headquarters, and court adjourns indefinitely as Kanu demands case transfer to Southeast. I particularly love how these two stories were put side by side. I think it is journalistic, poetic brilliance that this is done. And I say this because, you know, I'm coming to you, Mr. Ikechukwu Amechi, because there are people who would argue that Nnamdi Kanu has been treated unfairly. That's part of the reaction we've seen. There's been a public outrage on social media saying that he's been treated unfairly and that the actual terrorists are being rehabilitated, according to the paper now, de-radicalized, and all these other fancy words they used to, you know, treat them with a softer hand. But let's get a reaction as to how Nnamdi Kanu's case has been handled so far and the indefinite adjournment by Justice Binta Nyako.
Well, those that believe that Nnamdi Kanu has been unfairly treated, I think they have a point there, because look, you can ask yourself this question: will Nnamdi Kanu still be in detention today if he's not Igbo? There are some people who believe that perhaps no. And again, people who actually committed acts of terrorism, you are rehabilitating them. You say there are 800 of them. You say you are
de-radicalization.
De-radicalizing them. And after that, you put them back in the society. There were some allegations in the past. The military denied it anyway, that some of them were even being recruited in the military and other security forces. And yet, Nnamdi Kanu. And it is not only that the courts have ruled. The courts have ruled that this man should be set free. It is only common sense to say that this is no longer rule of law playing out now. Nnamdi Kanu, this is...
It's almost like persecution.
Not persecution only. This is political case. Nnamdi Kanu is a political detainee. He's a political prisoner. And the government has what it takes to say, let us solve this problem. They know why they are keeping him. Some people have said that by keeping him, they know that his so-called followers will continue to do what they are doing in the Southeast. They sit at home on Mondays and the level of violence. And because the people who are in power, right from Muhammadu Buhari, also want the Southeast to be destabilized as it is being destabilized today, they continue keeping him. But it doesn't make sense.
But the government, sorry to interrupt you, the government argues that IPOB is a terrorist group. They proscribe the group and they say he's responsible for a lot of insecurity in the Southeast. Do you think they have any legitimate grounds to make those allegations?
IPOB is in court. In fact, they are in Supreme Court right now, challenging that prescription and the labeling of IPOB as a terrorist group. So let the courts decide. But the truth of the matter is that if Nnamdi Kanu is not Igbo, I'm not too sure. Look.
But others will point to the case of Hamza al-Mustafa, who was detained indefinitely for almost a decade since the advent of democracy. And they will say, you know, he's not Igbo, but this happened to him.
But you know why Hamza was detained? Obasanjo became president. And Hamza al-Mustafa was the real first of Abacha that everybody saw. So it was only natural that Obasanjo, whether good or bad, would treat him the way he was treated. So his case is very different from that of Nnamdi Kanu. Why don't you let this guy go and see what it is that could be done? Look.
Let's quickly take a call and we'll come back to the conversation. We have Florence who's calling. Good morning, Florence. Thanks for calling. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Please, I'm very, very upset by the comment of your guest saying that if Nnamdi Kanu were not to be Igbo, I think it's ridiculous. I can't imagine myself that in this century they reduce issues to ethnicity. While I agree, that the Nnamdi Kanu problem might be to find a political solution to it. But can anyone deny the atrocities that his network committed even against fellow Igbos? A lot of people were killed in the East. Akuili's husband was murdered. Just to mention a few. Now, while I don't think it is right for bandits to be rehabilitated anywhere, I think it is most ridiculous to say that Nnamdi Kanu, the trial is going the way it is going because it's Igbo. I hate to use other words, but I think that we cannot build a nation like this. And a medium such as the one you are using should not be allowed for people to make such comments. I think Nnamdi Kanu's case has been prolonged because of the way even his own lawyers handled the case. That's the thing. The way they handled it has complicated the whole issue. And therefore, the way it is now, it is to find the political situation and never to say because it's people. The law in our law books, our justice does not recognize people on the basis of ethnicity. And I think that we should never encourage such comments. We can address issues, but never encourage such comments. Thank you and have a blessed day.
Thank you very much for calling.
You have the right to feel anyhow you want to feel, Florence. I concede that to you. But the truth of the matter is that part of the problem we have in this country is that we play the ostrich by denying the obvious. Look, there were people like Sunday Igbo in this country that also agitated, and is still agitating for a Yoruba nation. Where is Sunday Igbo today? Sunday Igbo is a free man. You're talking about not doing anything. Look, the last Ohaneze president, Chief Emmanuel Iwanyanwu, died because of this same Nnamdi Kanu issue. Because he went to see Nnamdi Kanu in detention. At least the son said so. Last week, he went to see Nnamdi Kanu in DSS detention facility, and they did not allow him to drive in there. So the man had to trek a distance before getting there. And when he came back home, he started complaining of heart issues. They took him to hospital and he died. Chukwemeka Ezife was there every day. They pleaded until he died. The other old man also went to Buhari and said, please do this for me as a gift, as the last wish of an old man, Amechi Mbazulike, and said, give this man to me. Southeast governors, many of them have said, give this man to us. We will guarantee that there will be good behavior. So why are all the terrorists that are being arrested in the north, where are they today? Where is the man who bombed what is this Catholic church in Niger State in those days? Where are they? So people may pretend, because whenever the issue is Igbo, people may pretend that it is that eye service that has kept Nigeria the way it is. Anybody who does not want to accept that there is an Igbo problem that needs to be solved, that person is telling himself lies. So
I believe we have a call from Eric in Abuja, if I'm not mistaken. Please go ahead and talk to us. Hello?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
Yes,
Please
good
go
morning.
ahead.
Okay, my name is Henry. I'm calling from Abuja. Okay, so concerning Nnamdi Kanu's case, right? For me, I sincerely want Nnamdi Kanu to be released. But you know, when you look at what this young man did in the past, if you look at his videos, if you watch his videos and his utterances, you wouldn't want to do that. Yes, in as much as Igbo leaders have been pleading on his behalf for him to be released, the president or whoever that is on seat as the president during Buhari or Tinubu, they will take it with a pinch of salt. They actually want the judiciary to run out whatever they need to do with him. For me, I suggest that the judiciary should expedite action in his trial. And he should allow his lawyers to do the job. Look at how he was doing in the court yesterday. How can you be in the court, you're under detention, and you're shouting the way you're really beating your own lawyer? This is the reason why Michael Ozokome said there's no more doing. The man should show restraint, calm down, and allow people who are speaking on his behalf to have it easy with the authority. Right now, the only thing that will save Nnamdi Kanu is political solution. And the Igbo leaders and the rest of them should keep going to the president with the governors of the Southeast to speak on his behalf, not what he was doing yesterday. That was an eyesore, what he was doing in the court yesterday. Let us condemn his action and allow his lawyers to do his job for him. And he should also show remorse in his approach to all these things. People want him to be released because we believe that it will help the security situation in the Southeast. But we also need to help people and help us speak to leaders appropriately, and we should protect his behavior. Thank you very much.
Very much, Henry from Abuja. Mr. Amaewhule, I want to ask you a direct question. Do you think if Nnamdi Kanu is granted presidential amnesty today and is released for the sake of peace and, mending fences, peace will return to the Southeast and we'll stop having Monday sit-at-homes and there'll be relative calm? Remember, he had been released before and he jumped bail, he went to Kenya, and they started agitating again and saying all those things against the federal government. So what will be different this time around?
Pointing out in context that yes, he did jump bail, but the explanation, according to him, is that there was an attack on his life and his family.
Yes.
Benga, the truth of the matter is that, let me even start by saying that I'm not a fan of Nnamdi Kanu, and I'm on record to have said that I disagree with so many of the things that he said, so many of the actions that were taken by IPOP and all that. But we are looking at a situation now. What do we do? Do we need a political solution to all this? And I am saying that what needs to be done right now is a political solution. Look, IPOB has become a franchise. What is going on in the Southeast now, if you ask me, I would say it is sheer criminality. It has nothing to do with so-called
agitation for Biafra.
Agitation for Biafra. And for all you care, even if you go to Southeast today and say, okay, let there be a referendum, you may find out that Igbo people may not actually vote for an independent Biafra. Before Ojukwu died, he propagated what he called the Biafra of the mind. And the Biafra of the mind is a renaissance of the Igbo philosophy, the ethics, the ethos that have helped the Igbo people thrive.
Regardless of where you are.
Regardless of where you are. Those things are there. That is what is needed.
So what's the political solution? Would he, if he's released, will there be peace in the Southeast?
If he is released, Igbo leaders have gone to say, we can guarantee, release him to us. We will guarantee that there will be peace.
But is that not an indictment on the part of the leaders? If they're saying if you release him, there will be peace, is that also saying that the fact that he's detained is what is causing the insecurity in the Southeast? Also, bearing in mind that he has many times before now dissociated himself with the violence that is going on in the Southeast.
He has associated himself with the violence going on in the Southeast. But don't forget what I just said now, that people
are using the cover of...
As a franchise, IPOB, and the fact that he's been detained, they are using it as a cover to go into, look, what is going on...
So whose responsibility is to take care of the criminality, like you said?
The criminality is that if he comes out today, then you can no longer hide under the cover of Nnamdi Kanu being in detention and do what you do. So that when you now do it, it becomes obvious to everybody that you're on your own. You can't go out there and kill people and say it is because you are agitating for Biafra. You can't go out there and kill policemen and kill security people and say because you are agitating for Biafra. There's no decent man who will condone the level of violence we are seeing today in the Southeast, all in the name of agitating for Biafra. You don't even go out there and kill the same people you say you are fighting for their freedom. It doesn't make sense.
All right, let's quickly hold that thought and get a reaction from Dr. Olusonya, who's calling from Lagos. Good morning, Dr. Olusonya. Please go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Can I go on?
We can hear you, Dr. Olusonya. Please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, good morning. Good morning. Well, I've been listening to the discussion. Number one, I have to say, I agree that there is a Igbo question. But the Igbo question is not synonymous with Nnamdi Kanu's issue. I want to repeat, I say, I agree that there is an Igbo question that we all must look into. It's essentially political. And it's one of the deceits that we have been thrown around within ourselves. If we say, I'm not an Igbo man, I'm a proper Yoruba man, I'm a prince of my town. But I believe that we must address this Igbo question. Now, the issue of Nnamdi Kanu is in court. No precedent we want to be seen as overruling the judicial process. Let this matter go through political process, and thereafter there could be political intervention. But you can't just stop. Like one gentleman said, a lot of things have been done by this gentleman, and the conduct of this man, even within the premises of the court, does not show a man that is remorseful. People are going there to plead with you. You yourself must be remorseful, and we must allow people to say, this is a change. This is a change. A change as a person. So that is it. Let's just separate it from the question, from the potent question of the political ego issue. That one with that one we even need a national conference to discuss it. Whether we want the egos to be convenient in this federation. That one must be addressed. But don't mix it with the guys' the problem. Let us face the judicial process, and thereafter, if the president wants to grant him amnesty, or so that one is also possible. But let this process go on.
Contribution. I want us to quickly wrap up this crisis. So this conversation. Yeah, it is a crisis at this point.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So if we can quickly wrap it up because we're reviewing the papers and we haven't been able to take any other story. And I want us to take one more story before we wrap up. So your final thoughts.
Olive, the final thought is that yes, what Dr. Olusoya said about going the whole hog. Look, courts have given verdicts on this issue and said because of the extraordinary rendition, it takes away from any other thing because you can't put nothing and it stands if it is standing on nothing. Those judgments have been given before now. If they say they want to go the whole hog of saying this thing, Nnamdi Kanu has also, look, Justice Binta Nyako, I think that was 24th of September or so last year, but sometime last year, recused herself because Nnamdi Kanu said, I no longer have confidence in this court. And the judge recused herself. But they, of course, and took back the file
to the chief judge.
To the chief judge, Justice John Soho. But who in his wisdom said no, that she must continue with the case. That is where we are now. The Ding-Dong affair. Can there be a political solution even while the president has the powers to enter a null prosecute with conditions? Nobody is saying just throw Nnamdi Kanu back in the system without
following due process. Yeah.
Due process or some conditions. But people need to sit down and say, what is the best way forward? If what is going on now, hitting up the polity, if people think that's the best way to go about it, that's fine and good. But for me, I think a political solution is what we need. What we need in this case is not a judicial solution. We need a political solution to the whole crisis.
All right, as quickly as we can, there are a number of other stories that of course, this seems to be the biggest story in the past 24 hours. Obasanjo, Atiku, others meeting no threat, says APC. Ruling parties unfazed as Labour Party and NNPP are divided over possible Atiku-Obasanjo collaboration ahead of next election.
And also to put some context to it, Mr. Atiku, the former vice president, came out when he was ambushed by journalists and said, look, this was not a political meeting. Do you believe that?
No, I don't. I don't. Of course, Atiku also knows that he was only trying to play some games there. The truth of the matter is that the politics of 2027 has started in full steam.
We're not even halfway done with this term.
Exactly. And you are bound to get these alignments and realignments and people going out there to do what it takes. So the visit of Atiku and his political
Leo, Imoke, Tambua
friends to go and see Obasanjo cannot be a private
Maybe it's courtesy visit and tourism. You know, Abeokuta is a very beautiful place. There's Olumoro up there. There's a Kuti Heritage Museum and other things.
Atiku can quietly go and see Olumoro and go back without going with Liyelu Moke, Tambuwal, Emeka Ihedioha, and all his political friends. It has to do with 2027, but let us see how it goes. The other day, the former governor of Kano State,
Kwankwaso, met with Ariaria Shola, yes,
in Lagos. There was a seminar in Abuja last time where Rotimi Amechi, Nasiri El-Rufai, Tambuwal, Atiku, all of them were there. So people are beginning to realign. I think they are aware that the only way there will be a formidable force that can face APC in 2027 is if the opposition
unites.
Forces come together. If they go individually, it is bound to fail. The issue there is that the Atiku candidacy, people still insist that he still wants to contest.
I mean, there are egos at play here. These are political juggernauts. You look at Kwankwaso, for example, Peter Obi, Atiku, everybody will say, why should it be this man? I can do it myself. When the APC came into power, there was a power behind the power in terms of Bola Tinubu didn't go at his first attempt. He pushed the Buhari, and then opposition politics is very hard to play. So how do you see, in 30 seconds, so we can quickly wrap up this conversation, how do you see all these egos and personalities coming together to on a united front?
Unless they are buried. Unless they are buried. And I think that was the point Peter B was making. There must be some level of selflessness. If Atiku is insisting that he must be, and Kwankwaso is insisting he must be the candidate, and Peter Obi is insisting he must be the candidate, and perhaps Rotimi Amechi is insisting, it means we'll have 4 candidates at the end of the day, and none of them can
work to the advantage of the APC.
Exactly. Yeah. So the best thing for them is that while they are networking, while they are doing their national meetings, they must also begin to agree. What you said is true. In 2015, what happened? Everybody looked at who has the best chance to restore power from a sitting government and a sitting president. And they said, look, Buhari has come up with his fabled 11 or 12 million voters that have been voting for him since God knows when. And there is also a feeling in the North that President Goodluck Jonathan, going for a second term, was against the agreement he reached.
Non-written agreement. But Mr. Meche, I'm so sorry. Olive needs to take what Nigerians are saying. We need to feel the pulse of the nation. Always a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much. I will look forward to seeing you very soon. Yes.
Benga, the pleasure is always mine. Nigeria, we need to continue discussing. There is, look, people living in denial cannot solve the problems of this country.
We need to stop that ostrich bury things in the head, mentality.
We must face the reality.
Anyway, I'm going to explore what Nigerians are saying, because that's also the main topic this morning, looking at Nnamdi Kanu's case, the update, and exactly what Nigerians think about this in a moment. Welcome to What Nigerians Are Saying, where your opinions matter. Today, we're diving into the saga of one of our most controversial stories in the past 24 hours with one of the most controversial figures, Nnamdi Kanu, the outspoken leader of the indigenous people of Biafra. Kanu's fight for Biafran independence has made him a lightning rod for controversy, leading to multiple arrests and terrorism charges. Now, for a bit of background, Kanu was first arrested back in 2015 under President Buhari's administration. In a landmark decision on the 13th of October 2022, the Abuja Court of Appeal ruled that his rendition to Nigeria had violated his rights under the extradition treaty, striking out the terrorism charges and ordering his release. Yet, the government refused to let him go, citing fears he wouldn't show up for future court dates and potential insecurity in the southeast. Later, the Attorney General's office appealed that ruling, and on the 15th of December 2023, the Supreme Court reversed the acquittal, ordering Kanu's trial to continue at the Federal High Court in Abuja. Now, fast forward to 24 September 2024, when Kanu requested Justice Nyako's recusal, accusing her of bias. Although she initially withdrew from the case, the matter was later reassigned back to her, a decision that Kanu has continually opposed. Now, in the latest twist, Justice Binta Nyako has indefinitely adjourned Kanu's trial. This move has sparked a firestorm of reactions on X, with Nigerians weighing in on the implications for justice and freedom. Now, let's take a look at what Nigerians are saying about this latest development in the Nnamdi Kanu case. Obia Sogo David has tweeted about this, and in the tweet he says, Nnamdi Kanu actually didn't say more than the obvious. The corruption in Nigeria's judiciary is that they interpret the law upside down to favor criminal interests. It is not that they don't know the law, they know, but interpret the law to mean the opposite of what it is. And the next tweet in reaction to this is by Uchenna Marvin, who says, Nnamdi Kanu is not asking for favors from the Nigerian government. He's simply asking you to obey your own law. The unfair treatment of Ndigbo in Nigeria will end Nigeria. It might take time, but it will happen. Hashtag free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu now. Our next tweet in reaction to this is from someone who calls him or herself Fab. And in the tweet, Fab had also shared sentiments regarding this, saying, you can't be demanding for a better Nigeria and yet be in support of this judicial rascality and madness. It's either you're an hypocrite or you're a thief that Nigeria hasn't favored. We stood firm for Uncle Dele. We should stand strong too for Nnamdi Kanu. Same judicial madness Dele faced is the same thing Nnamdi Kanu is facing. In a better and just society, injustice to one is injustice to all. Shehu Ghazali Sadiq also reacts to this, saying, why is Tinubu keeping Nnamdi Kanu in detention? Buhari claimed he's detained because he's causing insecurity in the southeast. Has detention of Nnamdi Kanu stopped insecurity in the southeast? No. Insecurity has rather increased. Detention of Nnamdi Kanu is pure obsession, he says. And Ikenga also shares similar sentiments regarding the detention of Nnamdi Kanu. He says, among folks who criticize Nnamdi Kanu and ask the Nigerian government to never release him from incarceration are those who actually have a deeply ephemeral moral compass and can't even stay a week in incarceration without folding. There's no reason for MNK's continued incarceration, he says. Mezie Abia joins his voice, or lends his voice to this, saying, Nnamdi Kanu is a prisoner of conscience. His continuous incarceration, even when a Nigerian court has ruled in his favor and discharged him, remains unjust and inhumane. Those who abducted him in Kenya and renditioned him extraordinarily back to Nigeria in clear and crass violation of the extradition treaty between Nigeria and Kenya are lawless, primitive, and lack every modicum of civility. Conscience is an open wound. Only truth can heal it, and we've got to say the truth. It doesn't matter whose ox is gored. Our final tweet this morning is from Promise Pink, who says, so, the Nigerian government frees Fulani terrorists, calls them repentant, and even gives them positions. Yet, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, who isn't a terrorist, is still locked up, and they can't follow the law to free him. Does this mean terrorists run the government? Promise Pink. Hey. Anyway, these are some of the tweets that we've seen on social media regarding the update on Nnamdi Kanu's case. Again, to mention, his matter has been adjourned indefinitely. We do not know what the next steps are. Some have argued that the decision or the way to solve Nnamdi Kanu's case might not be a legal matter, but might have to be a political matter in this regard.
I mean, Nigerians have said quite a lot, and they're still saying quite a lot. Of course, anytime Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's case comes up, it elicits a lot of reactions, obviously, and emotions. But what I'll say is, you know, there's a saying that one man's freedom fighter is another man's terrorist. Nelson Mandela was on the terrorist list. Margaret Thatcher called him a terrorist. Ronald Reagan too called him a terrorist. And look what happened a few years later. And for Nigerians that are watching this program, I'll refer you back to Oliver Nye's interview with Liboros Oshoma this morning. I believe we dissected the legal angle, and I believe we covered most of the news for better and fair understanding of the situation. So I'll recommend they should watch it. Well, everyone is within their rights to express their views and sentiments, regardless of which side of the divide
I mean, it's been the main core of our conversation today. The two guests we've had, Liboros Oshoma and Ikechukwu Amechi, has spoken extensively about it. Ikechukwu Amechi talking about how the way to solve it not being a judicial matter or a legal matter, but a political issue that needs to be resolved, highlighting that there might be, that there is a crisis. He says that there's an Igbo problem that needs to be solved. Liboros Oshoma, on the other hand, highlighted the fact that yes, Justice Binta Nyako had recused herself from the case. However, it is not within her power to determine which case she will or will not handle, as it resides within the chief, you know, the purview of the chief judge. Yes.
I also pointed out the dilly-dallying on both sides. Both sides have blames in this situation, the Nnamdi Kanu camp and also the federal government. But I would go for, I mean, if it was left to me, a political solution to
absolutely. I mean, because at the end of the day, the government in some ways have been accused of dilly-dallying, of detaining him for reasons best known to them. The court gave an order, the government overruled the court order. So at the end of the day is, you know, can we then say that the court order can only be obeyed in certain scenarios when it's suited, you know, to the government, or but if the government doesn't see it as something that is suited to its own arguments, then I mean, where then is the position of the rule of law? But Nnamdi Kanu, exactly, Nnamdi Kanu has also been criticized in the manner in which he's spoken. Typically, as the defendant, you wouldn't typically speak in court. It is your lawyer that speaks on your behalf. But in the manner in which he's handled it and he's interrupted, they've said that in some cases it might discourage a number of lawyers and maybe judges from wanting to sit on this matter.
Suggested that he's not sober, but you can understand why he's very
agitated, exactly, because of the history and the journey that has led us to where we are. But at the end of the day, what we do want is for every Nigerian to feel adequately represented. No Nigerian is more Nigerian than any Nigerian. And we do hope that every Nigerian can get to the point where we feel, every one of us feels primarily Nigerian and feels very excited to be a Nigerian and doesn't feel ostracized
in any part of the country,
in any way, shape, or form. And we hope that what is right is being done in the Nnamdi Kanu case, and that justice is not just done, but manifestly seen to be done by all. And that concludes our submission today on Breakfast Central. Thank you very much for joining us. We're back again tomorrow. I am Olive MOD.
And I'm Benga Borowa.